which ones they are. Got mixed up. I can understand the idea that consciousness cannot be objectified because it is the subject. But can't we break all objects down to consciousness? It seems like nothing can be objectified because all of it is consciousness. Consciousness cannot be objectified, correct? Name and form can be objectified. So everything in the universe is a khichdi. Consciousness plus name and form. Yeah, that's why they serve khichdi a lot in the ashrams. So we get it into our heads once and for all. So name and form plus what? Consciousness. Consciousness cannot be removed, cannot be objectified, cannot be understood as something separate from you because it's the essence of you. It is that which makes the name and the forms tick. That is what is consciousness. Names and the forms tick. Names and the forms have a being and give a being. That is what is consciousness. Okay? Yeah. So, all objects are consciousness, yes. But they are consciousness conditioned by, as it were, by name and form. And so, name and form cannot be removed from consciousness. So we see a mixture. We see the name and form and confuse it for consciousness. That is the cause of what? Samsara. Isn't quantum physics close to proving that all objects are a field of consciousness? Yes. Yes, it is. Because that is exactly what it says. And they have found out that whatever experiment they do is affected by the experimenter. That means, that can only mean one thing. If I am affecting the experiment, that means the experiment, which is the object of my observation and my whatever I'm doing, is non-separate from me. That is why I am affecting the experiment. Then, next one. Sometimes students of Vedanta look down on gurus of other lineages or gurus who teach other practices. This is in reference to what you talked about gurus in the 4 o'clock session. Is it some kind of spiritual ego? Not necessarily. Because to everybody, their own guru and their own lineage is very dear. That you cannot help but do that. So otherwise, if you did not find your own lineage and your own guru dear, you would not be coming there, to going to that guru. So you are going to that guru and then you feel good about it. So you will uphold that to which you are subscribed. So looking down, it's not just necessarily Vedanta teachers. Looking down upon other gurus, it's not so much looking down. It's more in the sense of understanding a fact. Whatever anybody teaches is not a problem. For the most part, unless they are teaching something absolutely wrong. It's not a problem. In fact, it can be helpful. Meditation is helpful. Breathing a certain way, calming down is helpful. Everything is an auxiliary means to moksha. We have to separate the teaching that says you are whole and the teaching that says make 5 rounds of the ashram. Okay? It's not better or worse, but it's talking of 2 different things. We have to see that. What is it saying? One is a means and the other is the end. This is what we have to see. And this is what we have to understand without a shadow of doubt. And what is there to understand? That what I need to see, what I need to comprehend is that nothing is separate from me. That is moksha. This is on the realm of knowledge rather than experience, rather than action. The realm of action is where many gurus, their portfolio is in the realm of action. Catch the nose, catch the toes. Many people can't catch the toes. It's been a while since they've seen their toes. Well, then at least catch the nose. Go here, go there, look at this, look at that. All these things. It's not that they are not useful. They are the means. They are the means for antahkarana shuddhi. They are the means for purification of the heart. They are the means for having a tranquil mind. And all that we need. But by catching the nose, if people got moksha, then what? What would happen? All the swamis from this lineage will be jobless. Okay? So catching the nose clears the sinuses and helps to, is an auxiliary method to calm the mind down and to prepare for moksha. But moksha is not something to gain, it is already gained and I have to understand it. This distinction has to be made so that people know what to do and how to select a teacher. The Mundakopanishad herself talks about how to select a teacher. And so therefore, what does she say? Parikshya lokan karmachitan nirvedam ayat brahmana. So the one that is interested in Brahman is Brahmana, and this Brahmana, parikshya lokan karmachitan, examining the world of action and result of action. Seeing the finitude of both action and the result of action, the person develops a certain disgust. Towards what? Towards the world of action and results. Why is there a disgust? Because I want the infinite, but I am infinitely reproducing what? The finite. That is why there is a mild disgust. Why do I keep doing this? What's wrong with me? This is obviously wrong. I shouldn't be doing this. And then, when this understanding comes, what is the understanding? Nasti akritaha kritena. Kritena karmana akritam brahma na. So by actions and by doing, you don't get the that which is not a product of action, namely the truth of yourself, namely Brahman. This has to be understood. So therefore, sometimes the teachers may point out, teachers of Vedanta may point out that the other gurus are following certain other practices will not deliver moksha, because moksha is something to be understood. Maybe online question. 4 online questions. Can you clearly review the specific eligibility for Brahma Vidya? Looking for specifics on criteria, on relative cheerfulness, etc., specifics on how to get there, including titiksha. Desire for knowledge needs to be greater than the discomfort. You already know, yes. Who are the specifics for? You don't need them. So who are they for? I wonder. Clearly review, okay, not unclearly. I have to clearly review. Not just eligibility, specific eligibility requirements, looking for specifics. And also the specifics of how to get there. Okay? 3 specifics I have to cover. So first, the specific eligibility. This is actually a good eligibility because this is itself a good eligibility criteria, the desire to be specific. Yes, because this is a specific goal, yes, which has to be ascertained. And it is a specific goal because it is sorted out from all the other goals. All the other goals are called goals because they make you go, goal, goal. Okay, that's why they are called goals. Goal, goal means round and round. That's why they are that kind of a goal that makes you go round and round. This goal makes you drop the seeking completely. Which to choose? This one to choose. So this is a specific goal. It stands out from other goals because all the other goals make you keep swimming in the fish bowl of samsara. The fish in the bowl is not thinking. That fish don't think that much. And so it's not thinking, I have been here before. Oh my God, I'm on my 17th round of this small bowl. What is wrong with me? How did I get trapped like this? The fish doesn't think, correct? But the person equipped with this human buddhi has the capacity to think that there is some sadhana, sadhya, asambandha. Asambandha means what? Non-connection between the goal, what I want, and how I am going about it. You get on a plane, and then what happens? You get off and you don't recognize where you are. Why? Because it's the wrong city. How did I get on the plane going to the wrong city? Because you didn't see where it was going. And sometimes, in these small towns, sometimes the airplanes, many airplanes will be there going to the small towns. And then you go sit there, you think you're sitting in your plane, and then the pilot announces, this flight is headed to Valdosta, Georgia. And then if you're not going to Valdosta, Georgia, what do you have to do? Get off. And sometimes I was there in this one particular flight, going from Atlanta to Valdosta, and as soon as the pilot made the announcement, 4 or 5 people got off. They were on the wrong plane. Sometimes they don't hear the announcement. And then what happens? You end up where you don't want to go. One time it's funny, second time it's sad. But then lifetime after lifetime after lifetime of getting on the wrong bus, getting on the wrong plane, getting on the wrong train is no longer cute. It is decidedly uncute. So first, the sadhana and sadhya have to be in alignment. They have to be ascertained. What is this sadhana? What is sadhya? What is to be gained? And then what is the specific sadhana to be used to gain this? If I am already in this particular city somewhere, if I am already in San Francisco, do I need to take a train to go to San Francisco? This is what I have to see. No, of course not. Because why? I am already there. So if I am already there and I feel like I am not there, what should I do? I should go for instruction. And what is the instruction? You are already where you need to be. And so I have to learn to see that for myself, that I am already where I need to be. I don't need to go anywhere. So first, the sadhana, the practices or the means have to be aligned with the end. The means cannot be do some more things and the end is not do worship. It does not work that way. And so therefore what? So therefore we have to first align the means and the goals. And what is the goal of Vedanta? To stop going, round and round. That is the goal of Vedanta. And the goal of Vedanta is to know that you are the goal. And so that has to be ascertained. And once that is ascertained, how to get to this goal, that's the second thing that has to be ascertained. And what is that second thing to be ascertained? What is the means? What is the sadhana I should choose? Many sadhanas are there. Like I said, catch the nose, catch the toes, go here, go there, breathe in a certain way after paying us $500 for the weekend. And air is free. Breathing is involuntary, but sometimes you have to pay to breathe. And so breathe this way, breathe that way, all these things. And all these things are there. Is that where I need to go? Is that what I need to do? I have to ascertain. And that ascertainment is called Nishchayatmika Buddhihi Vyavasayatmika Buddhihi. Meaning a buddhi that is able to come to this ascertainment once and for all that this is not a matter of doing, this is a matter of knowing, A, and B, I really need this knowledge, I need to know. These two things have to be ascertained. And so this Vyavasayatmika Buddhi, in the Bhagavad Gita, it is said, Eka iha Kurunandana. There's only one buddhi, there's only one choice, there's only one thing to pursue, and make that buddhi into your, make that ascertainment, make that commitment. And otherwise what will happen? Bahushakhaha anantaha cha buddhayaha avyavasayinam. So people who have not made this ascertainment, they are drawn to many modalities of being, many things start to shine. So many things. This also is moksha, why not? Movie, moksha, 2 hour moksha, okay? And then sleep, 8 hour moksha. Or however long you sleep. Then going to the mall, another form of moksha. Moksha of your pocketbook from you. Okay? That is one type of moksha in the mall. How do you spell mall? M-A-U-L. Okay? There is your mold of your sanity and your wallet at the same time. So, these are all small forms of moksha. I enjoy them, one can say, but how do you enjoy them? In short bits and spurts, you enjoy them. You don't have the ability to enjoy them fully because the means are not there. Means are not there. The karanas are not there. So in short bursts you enjoy them and then they go away. The prarabdha is also not there for continuous enjoyment, not possible. The continuous enjoyment, it cannot be object-based, it is subject-based. Another viveka here. So the viveka means discernment between nityavastu and anityavastu. And anityavastu I do not pursue, nityavastu, that which is permanent, alone I pursue. And everything is impermanent except for the one who says everything is impermanent. Who is that? Aham, I. So the goal has to be clarified, the connection to the goal and the sadhana has to be clarified, and understanding this as my nature, that is the only goal, has also to be clarified. And these are the ways in which one specifically grows into Brahma Vidya. All the other qualifications you can read up, not very difficult, including Titiksha. When you say that sentience is borrowed by the body-mind-sense complex, what do you mean? Sentience. Aliveness. Yes, aliveness is borrowed. Brahman is also there in the rock, yes. But the rock cannot say, hey, I rock. You say, I rock. That's the difference. Rock cannot say that. Why? Sukshma Sharira Abhavat. It doesn't have a medium where Brahman can be reflected. There is no medium for consciousness to reflect itself, and therefore, even though it is Brahman, latently, it is not understood fully. Okay? And so therefore, the sentience means, yes, the animation, the power to animate something is sentience, including rocks. Aniti. What is the word aniti? You said that which breathes. And yes, you are correct, that which breathes. Tadanam means tad aniti, that Brahman which breathes or because of which everything breathes, which is the breath of the breath, the eye of the eye, the ear of the ear, and so on. And then, will you break down the whole compound resolution grammar you were talking about in relationship to the meaning? What is outside the compound and how it is resolved, and what the word of indicates, world lord, etc., lord of the world, lorded by the world. Yeah. There is a poem. Aham cha tvam cha Rajendra Lokanatha Ubhavapi. This man dares to tell the king, you and I, O Raja, you and I are world lords. Before the king goes off with his head, because how dare you compare yourself to the king? I am world lord all right, but this upstart is telling me both of us are world lords. Aham chatvam cha Rajendra Lokanathau Ubhau Api. Both of us are world lords. Slight difference. What is the difference? Bahubrihi Rahamasmi Shashti Tat Purusho Bhavan. These are two kinds of compounds. Bahubrihi means the one who is lorded by the world. The one who is lorded by the world. That's how to resolve it. So, I am that kind of a compound, lorded by the world I am, and you are what? Lord of the world. Both of us are world lords. That is all is meant here.
One just question in regard to that. The role of Antakaran Shuddhi.
Yes, that's what. In order to discern what is the goal in life, the freedom from raga dveshas are needed. That is what Antakarana Shuddhi, accelerated by Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga, when you do, what is there? It is only Ishvara. Ishvara Arpana Buddhi. And then all the phala comes from who? Ishvara. And what do? I don't take that seriously. I don't take the karma phala seriously. Whatever comes, I accept. I don't take this as personally, oh, I'm not getting what I want. You're not supposed to get what you want in Karma Yoga. Okay? So this is how one prepares. Anybody can sing a bhajan? We can have a little bhajan break. Very nice. Yesterday you said do japa, at least you will get punya. I'm just reading. Why will that lead to punya? Well, you're not robbing a bank when you're doing japa. So it's punya because you're taking the name of Bhagavan. You are setting your sights on something bigger than your own needs. You're using your free will for a change. Free will is used only when you do reaching out actions and prayers. Japa is a form of mental prayer where you sit quietly, tranquil mind, and then you mentally repeat the name of Bhagavan. So therefore, punya is generated. Very simple. How to reduce the stress caused by the illness of the loved ones. The stress is because the fear. There is fear. There's fear something will happen. And there is a over responsibility. One feels I have to keep them alive by any means necessary. That's a lot of burden. It's not our job to keep the loved ones alive. It isn't, it cannot be. Whose job is it? Bhagavan's job, Ishvara's job. All stress, the cause of all stress is taking on Ishvara's portfolio while not being Ishvara. This is why there is stress. So I have to drop it. I have to do a visualization of putting the loved one in Bhagavan's lap every day. Every morning you do that. Every morning you say, I am not taking care of this one. You are the one taking care of this one. And do whatever is best for them. And of course you can pray. If they are having a hard time with the illness, you can pray for alleviation of symptoms. After all the measures have been taken, you can pray for alleviation of symptoms. You can do all kinds of things. But ultimately, you understand that they also have their own karmic trajectory. You can influence it. You can perhaps even extend somebody's life. But that doesn't give us the hubris to think that we are Bhagavan in that sense. We are Bhagavan in the sense of we share the same Satchidananda. In that sense we are Bhagavan, not in the sense of all power, all might, that particular iteration is not there. And so, therefore, we stop playing God when the stress also comes down. The stress and that hypervigilance, because usually when somebody is sick, you see what happens is that it's not just an objective event. Somebody is sick, okay. That means what? You have to take care of them. You need perhaps some equipment, whatever they need. You need medicines. Then the job is done. Maybe you need some caregiving help and then the job is done. No, that's not how easy it is. Because feelings of everybody is involved. The feelings of the one who is giving care is involved. The feelings of the sick one is also involved. And the feelings of all the other people who decide what you should and should not be doing, how you should and should not be caregiving, that is all involved. So therefore it becomes a mess, or it can become a mess. So what does one have to do? In the face of all that, one has to be calm. One has to chart out a plan and one has to follow that. Whatever it is that one is doing, one has to know. This is when taking care of a loved one, all kinds of feelings will come up. Guilt may come up, resentment may come up, and competition may come up. I am a better caregiver than you, like that. And then all these things have no place in the caregiving scenario. So we have to find other healthy avenues of off-gassing all these feelings, emotions, which are valid, but then there is no place for them here. Right now there is somebody sick, they need attention. My own inner child has no business there. I have to be focused on the person. And so therefore, all these emotions should have a place of release. Whether it is through prayer, therapy, yoga, or a combination of the above. So I have to get to the place where I make the caregiving situation as objective as possible. Where I am able to absorb without reactivity the feelings of other people which are off-gassing towards me. This is what I have to do. I should not take all that personally. And so I have to remain strong. And therefore, caregiving and Vedanta go together, really. Vedanta gives us the ability to be centered and to do whatever is needing to be done without making it into a big drama. When somebody is sick, we don't need drama, we only need Rama. Okay? Yeah. That is why there is stress. Stress is there because we have an agenda and a desired outcome. When we are able to give up the desired outcome, the stress goes away because you can't manufacture that outcome. Is our Purva Janma Prarabdha determined by Atma? In other words, do we create our own afflictions? Yes and no. Atma doesn't do anything. Yeah. It's the Jiva that creates. So, yes and no. Karma is yours. It's not that you are being given the neighbor's karma, okay? Yeah. Let's be very, very clear on that. You are not having neighbor's karma to deal with, your own karma. There is no mistake in that. It's your own karma only that is there. But then, how you experience it, it's not up to you. When you experience it is also not up to you. So how you experience it, when you experience it, all that is not at all up to you. So therefore, it is your own, the raw material is yours, but that raw material is cooked by Ishvara and then given to you to eat up. And then you say, oh, I don't like the taste. Well, it's your own karma. So, it's like that. I have an idea of the Big Bang being as though, as well as mathematics, physics and scientific laws as being as though. But can you please explain? Yeah, everything is as though. Why? Vacharambhanam vikaro namadheyam vrittika ityeva satyam. There is only place for room for one sat. Sat does not brook any competition. Why? Because it is anantam sat. It is paramarthikam sat. It is the absolute reality and there is only Sat. Why? Because it is limitless. Limitlessly one, non-dually one. One Sat and one Sat alone there is. So this is what is Sat. Now, the branches of knowledge, science, physics, psychology, etc., are all what? Manifestations of this Sat. And since the manifestation is non-separate from the manifester, and therefore what? It's all as though. It's all as though. It is as though because it is a dependent reality. If you look at the field of physics, psychology, it keeps on branching into various specialties, infinite specialties. Medicine itself. There is no more the entity called general practitioner. Now, there is no such person anymore. It's always specific things and various specialties. I met one person, just fell into a conversation. What do you do? I'm a hand surgeon. Just operates on the hand, nothing else. You go show her the foot? No, I only do hand. Like that, the knowledge has become much more specialized, more and more specialized. Today hand surgeon, tomorrow finger surgeon. Perhaps it will specialize and split even further, who knows? And so that itself shows the mithyatvam of this whole thing. All of them are there, from the neurologist to the podiatrist with their various shingles. They are waiting for this body to come to them. Head to toe, they are there waiting. So, the knowledge is so, that shows us two things. One is, the knowledge is so infinite that it cannot be mastered by one person. That's why it keeps specializing. And so therefore, it's mithya. It's mithya because that which has parts, various sections, various specialties, itself is mithya because each thing depends on the other. Each thing depends on the other. Hand is as though, and hand surgeon is also what? As though. As though operating on the as though hand. Hand itself you can make it disappear. So what to talk of the hand surgeon? So everything is as though. And that which is not as though is the one because of which the as though can exist. As though can be fun when you know it is as though. If you take it for real, it's the cause of misery. One more question in this page. Is the following correct? We create time also through desire because we are fulfilling the desire in the future. Memory, because memory of an experience causes the desire, and the language which allows to name the desire and objects and experiences. Not quite. We don't create desire. Desire already is. Desire is Bhagavan. In the Bhagavad Gita it is said as much. Kamosmi Bharatarshabha, Dharma aviruddha kamosmi. I am the desire in Sarva Bhuteshu, in all the beings, which is in the form of what? In the form of dharma. That which is righteous, that which is there, that is the kind of desire I am. So desire you don't create, it's already there. You give voice to that which is already there. And when there is ajnanam, the desire goes berserk because it thinks that the desire will complete me and the desire will have some kind of an outlet, give me an outlet. That's the thing. So do we create time? Yeah, we create time, not individually, but collectively we have created time. Before the Industrial Revolution, we had a different concept of time. Even now in rural India, there is a different concept of time. But in the office-going world, there is a different concept of time. Post-Industrial Revolution, this whole 9 to 5. It's a different concept based on the exigencies of machines and all these things. Before, people would sit at home and shear the lamb, dye the wool, and then weave the wool, and then knit the sweater, and then take it to the market whenever they felt like, sold the sweater, got the money, and made a living like that. Now what has happened? That there is pressure to produce, mass production. So mass production you can't make at home because the machines that spit out sweaters, for example, have to be kept in a central place and operators taught how to operate the machine. And so therefore there is that centralization which affects time. Memory also Bhagavan creates. Matta smritir jnanam apohanam cha. Where have we heard that? Chapter 15. Chapter 15 is a good guess. Yeah. But it is true. So it's a good guess because many good things come in chapter 15. Mattaha, from me. Mattaha smritihi, I have created memory. And I have also created forgetting. So next time you get locked out of your room and then you wonder what happened to the keys and how you forgot the keys inside, you blame Bhagavan, okay? Don't blame yourself. Why? Bhagavan has created forgetting. But forgetting is a very fun, wonderful thing Bhagavan has created. Otherwise, you will be holding even more grudges than you already have. Think about it, how sad. So sad. Already full of grudges. And if there was no forgetting, everything, like the day you got hurt by somebody else, that would be pricking in the same way 3 lifetimes later. You would have that understanding, that memory, that 3 lifetimes ago, I was a dog and my puppy abandoned me. Or I abandoned my puppy, whatever it is. And that memory, that pain, whatever is still there in the same way, we would not get out of bed. We would not come out from under the covers, okay? It would be miserable. Forgetting is why we go on. Thank God there is forgetting. Imagine. Otherwise we would be taking ourselves too seriously. Otherwise there would be just no end to misery. So when you sleep at night, what happens? There is total apohanam, forgetting. Credit card debt, forgotten. Had a fight with somebody, some loved one, forgotten. Sleep overtakes all that. My own omissions and commissions, forgotten. Other people's omissions and commissions towards me, forgotten. Guilt and hurt, forgotten. Kartritva, bhoktritva, buddhi, forgotten. Of course, when you wake up, it will all come back, but at least for the time being, there is a respite. So forgetting is also, memory and forgetting also, gifts of Bhagavan.
Swamini, shloka is sarvasya cha aham hriday sannivishta.
What?
Sarvasya cha aham hriday sannivishta shloka.
Yes, I know that. The point being?
You said it was a good guess.
No, I know that. many important quotes are from the 15th chapter. So I said to everybody else that it's a good guess. So if you don't know what to guess, say 15th chapter. It was a joke, don't take it seriously. Nobody is questioning your creds, okay? You're fine.
It's so fast.
Yeah, very fast. So, nobody is questioning that. I'm just saying generally, so if anybody asks, where is this from? And even if it doesn't matter where it's from, you say Bhagavad Gita. It's a very good guess. And then if they then ask you, which chapter? Say 15th chapter. That's what I was saying. It's a joke. Then, so memory, because memory of an experience causes the desire. This is, don't overthink this too much, yeah. So you can say that we create time and then, so we create time and then we create all these, all the accoutrements of wanting to fulfill desire, you can say that. Okay, yeah. Language also, Bhagavan only creates, because all the words, like if we study Sanskrit, we will know how the Sanskrit language, why it is called Deva Bhasha. We know that. It's all based on the human voice acoustics. If you open your mouth and make a sound, what sound comes? That's what. If you have a human voice. Yeah. If you tell the crow, please open your mouth and make a sound, what sound will you do? Ka. No, not ka. Say ah. It will not oblige. That is the crow voice acoustics. And human voice acoustics, there's only one sound that comes. Then if you close your mouth and make a sound, what comes? That's the only sound that can come. No other sound comes. You see, there is a planning here. And then you round up all the sounds and you say, ooh, ah plus ooh plus om. Very interesting. So the language also is Bhagavan made. And so many languages we have. There is one clicking language in South Africa. Before every word you have to click. And if we had to speak that, in between the click and the word, you could go take a shower and come back. Because it will take us so long to articulate that language. But the way I have seen the way they speak it, all the clicks are very nicely folded into the words. How do they talk like that? Bhagavan. It's just amazing. So many languages are there, so many languages are dying, so many languages have died. All that. Bhagavan alone is there. Presumably, the dialogue of Ruddalaka and Shvetaketu was prior to the Vedas being organized into 4 groups by Vedavyasa that included Chandogya, etc. So, even so, presumably there would have been earlier Upanishads that Shvetaketu would have received as part of his implied comprehensive exposure in the time, in his time. In which case Shvetaketu would have encountered Mahavakya teachings without needing to have asked, or should it be taken that Shvetaketu only received Karmakanda teachings from the Vedas? The latter, yes. So, the child going, Mahavakya is not part of the curriculum, because children are not taught Mahavakya, it's not for young people really. So, they are taught Achara, how to behave, what to do, how to do pujas, how to do self-purification, how to chant, all these things, Nyaya, Tarka, all these things they are taught. And other disciplines like geography, anything that a school-going child should know. Mathematics, geography, civics, all these things. Conduct, all that is taught. So they would know how to recite the Upanishads, but they don't know the meaning. because there is no occasion to give that meaning. So they will be using, such a person coming from the Gurukula will be using the Upanishad mantras for Abhishek. Om Brahmavidapnoti Param. It's used for Abhishek. So he has not studied. That's why he was asked if he knew this. And he said, is there such a knowledge? Otherwise he wouldn't have said, is there such a knowledge? He would have already known. Should Uddalaka and Shvetaketu be taken as actual persons, or was the dialogue envisioned for teaching purposes by the rishi who composed the Chandogya Upanishad? First of all, the rishis do not compose the Upanishad. Upanishad is Apaurusheya. Apaurusheya means not human made. So the rishi, quote unquote, channels the Upanishad. Sees, they are not mantra kartaraha, they are mantra drashtaraha. They are there. That's why they are called what? Seers. Seers of the mantra, not authors of the mantra. This we have to be very clear. Because it has to be immaculate. For us to have Shraddha, it shouldn't be touched by a human hand. Human hand means some gadbad will be there. So, fallibility will be there. So, to see the Veda and Vedanta as infallible, so there is no rishi composing it. There is a rishi receiving it. And as it's received, the rishi is memorizing and repeating that. And then teaching the others also, other students also to repeat it like that. So, there is no composition. And then, should Uddalaka and Shvetaketu be taken as what? Real people at a time in history, or should they be fictional characters for the sake of delivering this knowledge? It does not matter. Even though it says Babhuva, ha, indeed. Indeed, there was someone called Shvetu. Indeed, there was a father turned teacher called Uddalaka. To us, it doesn't matter. Why Shvetaketu and Uddalaka? To us, it does not matter if Krishna was a historical figure or Rama was a historical figure. Somebody challenges from some other tradition and says, oh, your Rama did not really exist. He is a fictional character in the Mahabharata. We will say, doesn't matter. Does the devotion for Rama get any less? No. The devotion for Krishna get any less? No, it is immaterial to us, because that is not where the purport of the tradition lies. It is in what they taught. And it is in the fact that I am non-separate from them. That is where the purport lies. So let them be fictional or let them have been real, doesn't matter. Okay? I think that's it. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayaha, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhavet, Asato Ma Satgamaya, Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityo Ma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.